the idols, they never satisfied. They never satisfied.
Well, again, it's good to see all of you here today. This is what I want you to do. If you've got your Bibles, open them up to the book of Mark. It's the second book in the New Testament, Mark chapter 10. If you got a smartphone or something, you can open that app. Same thing, Mark chapter 10. And then also, hopefully you got a bulletin today. Take that out, and on the back of the bulletin, you have an outline there. You can follow along and take notes. I know God's going to speak to your heart today. And when he does, you need to write down what he says to you. That's how we learn and how we grow, is writing down what God speaks to our heart. So I encourage you to do that today. As most of you know, we're in the midst of a series called God's at War. And what we're doing is we're taking on the idols of our culture that basically steal our heart and our devotion away from Jesus Christ. And we are literally doing battle every week. We're confronting these idols that are so accepted in our society, and yet we're saying no. We're calling them out, saying, no, these are idols, and we're not going to have them in our lives anymore as followers of Jesus Christ. And what we're going to do today is we're going to confront the idol of materialism. We're going to see how to remove the gods of treasure. That's what we're going to talk about today. Because if we're honest, if there really is an American idol, this is it, the god of materialism. I mean, think about it. Even our very economy is based on the fact of people wanting more stuff, right? That's how our economy grows. I want more stuff. Now, the problem with materialism is that it gives you a promise that it can never fulfill, that somehow it will satisfy. Let me see if I can illustrate it like this. Have you ever been to those places like Chuck E. Cheese or Dave & Buster's kind of thing? And what they have is you eat pizza or eat something else, and afterwards then you go play games. They're normally for kids, but we as adults like it as well, you know? And whenever you're playing those games, I mean, what happens? Well, suddenly those games start kicking out tickets. And you start getting more and more tickets. And the way that it works is the more tickets you get, the bigger prize you get. And so your kid is, playing these games, and they're not getting enough tickets, so you push them out of the way. So you start playing the game so that you can get more tickets. Why? Because you want to get a prize, and you want to get a big prize, and that prize is going to change your life, right? That's the illusion. And so what do? You play like crazy to get all these tickets, and you got like 743 tickets, and you hand them to them, and you're expecting a prize, and what you get back is something like this. Okay? That's it. And you go, I'm a little disappointed in all this. What happens? We grow up. We become adults. We exchange these tickets for these tickets. And we got the same illusion that the more of these tickets I get, the more prizes I'll have, and then it's going to change my life. It's going to be amazing. I'm going to be happy. If I can get more of this, then I'll be satisfied. If I get more of this, I'll be happy. If I get more of this, then I can buy the stuff, and I'll be secure in life. And it's all a lie. At the end of the day, it's just a cheap toy. That's all it is. It's just an illusion. In fact, it promises something that only God can give you. Significance, security. That's it. And happiness, true joy. Only Christ can give it. This promises it, but it can't really give it to you. And so Jesus confronts the idol of materialism. Look out how he does that in Matthew chapter 6, verse 24. Jesus says this, no one can serve two masters. Either you'll hate the one and love the other, or you'll be devoted to the one and despise the other. Read this last phrase aloud with me. You cannot serve both God and money. You see, money is a very attractive God. Why? Because it promises everything that God promises. Security, significance, and satisfaction. That's what it promises, but it's an illusion. Now, we've been told all of our lives that money can't buy you happiness. That's what we've all been told, right? And yet somehow we still believe the lie. And it takes all different shapes and sizes. Maybe it's you and it's like, if I could just buy those shoes that matches that dress that I got to match that house. I mean, that hat that, basically match that bracelet that I got 50% off, then I'd be happy. Okay. Or how about this? Teenager comes to his parents. I need a smartphone. If I don't get a smartphone, my life is just terrible. The fact is, if I get a smartphone, I'll be popular. If I'm popular, I'll get a date to the prom, and then my life will be happy. But if I don't get a smartphone, you know what that means? That means I'll be unpopular, I'll be single all my life, I'll probably be unemployed, and my whole life will be miserable because you as a parent are bad and not giving me a cell phone. Right? That's how it works. That's how we're told. That's what we believe. Or maybe it's you, and you're like, if I could just move in that neighborhood, if I just own that house, or if our house just had another bedroom, or if we had another bathroom, if we had a game room, or man, if I just had a new car or a newer car, or if my car had that stereo or that sunroof, it's the same thing over and over, then I'd be happy, then I'd be happy, then I'd be happy. Some of you ladies are like, if I could just get my nails done at that salon, then I'd be happy. Ladies, can I just tell you something? When you get your nails done, it's for other ladies. It's not for guys. I've never heard a man go, dude, did you see that lady's nails? Wasn't that amazing? No. The fact is that money is all just this cheap ticket. It's an illusion to happiness that never happens. And that is exactly the story that we're looking at in Mark chapter 10. It is the story known as the rich young ruler. This young guy has the big three. He is, according to Matthew, he's young. According to Luke, he is a ruler. According to the synoptic gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, he is rich. He's got the big three. And yet something's missing in his life, and he knows it. And so he comes to Jesus, and in this dialogue with Jesus, Jesus confronts the idol of materialism. And when he does, he exposes it. And three things that I want you to see about money that will destroy materialism in your life. Here it is. Ready? Number one is this. Jot this down. Money will never satisfy. First thing you need to know is that money, and more of it, will never satisfy. In fact, turn to the person next to you and say, money will never satisfy. Money will never satisfy. Now, we somehow hear that, and yet somehow we don't believe it. Now, did it satisfy the rich young ruler? No. Think of it. He's got the big three. He's rich, he's young, he's a ruler. He's rich. That means he's got a nice house, got nice clothes. He's young, he's vibrant, he's got his whole life to live in front of him. He's a ruler. That means he has power and control and influence. He is living the American dream before anybody has dreamed of America. He basically, in our culture, when you have the big three, they guarantee if you're rich, you're young, you have control, oh my goodness, you will be happy. But he's not happy. Something's missing in his life. So he comes up to Jesus. Check it out. Look at what it says in verse 17. As Jesus started on his way, a man ran up to him, fell on his knees before him. Good teacher, he asked, what must I do to inherit eternal life? In your outline, circle the word life there. You've heard me teach on this before, but there's two Greek words in the New Testament for life. There is bios, where we get biology. It's talking about physical life. And then there's the Greek word called zoe, which means abundant, full life. That's the word here. What can I do to have zoe? You know what zoe is? Zoe is like whenever you have this great experience and a person says, man, that's life. That's zoe. It's this fullness of life. He says, what can I have? What do I need to do to experience this fullness of life? Because let's be honest, we're all on a search for it. Every one of us is looking for that thing that'll give us life. It may be drugs. It may be alcohol. Hey, happy hour's got to make you happy. It may be an illicit relationship. It may be some other person. It may be some possession. We are all on a search for Zoe. And yet somehow it's elusive. We can't seem to find it. You remember back in the 60s, you had the group, the Rolling Stones, sang the song, I can't get no satisfaction, right? I see some of y'all mouth, and you know those. You know that song. Or in the 80s, it's Bono and U2. Basically go, well, I still haven't found what I'm looking for. It doesn't matter what generation you grow up in. It's the same thing. You ain't getting no satisfaction because you don't know what you're looking for, right? That's it. Christ is the answer. And here's this young guy, and he knows something's missing. Good thing is, he comes to the right source, Jesus Christ. Have there ever been those times in your life where you're like, something's missing? Or maybe you're about to make a trip and you go, man, I feel like I've forgotten something. I need to remember something I've forgotten. Anybody have that happen to you? I have. I heard this story about this guy. He said he grew up in a family, and every time they took a family vacation, that's exactly what would happen. They'd be driving down the road, and the mom would say, honey, stop. We got to go back. I think I left the iron on. It's going to burn the house down. And so they turn around, go back, check on the iron. Of course, it was off. And he said every year it was the same thing. And then one year, they're driving down the road. The mom says, honey, stop, turn around. I think I left the iron on. The dad doesn't say a word. He just pulls over the shoulder, goes to the trunk, pulls out the iron, and gives it to her. Thinking ahead. But that's us. We know something's wrong. Something's missing. He knows something's missing. He's got the big three. He's rich. He's young. He's a ruler. And yet, something's still missing. Now, this is a smart guy, very wise. This is the reason why he's young and rich and a ruler, because he's smart. And so what's he doing? Well, he's coming to the right source, Jesus Christ. He's asking the right questions. How do I find real life? He's coming with the right attitude. He runs to Jesus and falls on his knees. He's coming at the right time of his life. He doesn't wait till he's old and pursued all kinds of other junk. And now he's coming young. This young guy, he's got it together. He's doing everything right here. He is. And yet, in just a moment, after Jesus talks with him, he's going to walk away sad from Jesus. Why? Because of the second truth about money, and it's this. Jot this down. Money can become an idol. Money can become an idol. You see, what's going to happen in your life is that Jesus is going to probe into your heart, and he's going to reveal the idols that are in your life. And it's not always going to be pleasant when he does that. Just like if you went to the doctor and you said, man, in my abdomen, it's sore, it's hurting, and he starts poking around and maybe on your right side, low like that, and you go, ooh, that's it. And you go, I bet that's an appendix, right? Or you go to the dentist and you go, I got this, sore tooth, and the dentist, pulls out an instrument of torture called a probe, and he starts sticking it in, and all of a sudden, found it, know which one it is now, right? Well, that's what Jesus is going to do. Jesus is going to probe around in our heart, and when he does, it makes us feel uncomfortable. What he's going to do with this young guy is he's going to give the 10 Commandments to reveal his idolatry. Now, what's interesting is every good Jewish boy knows the 10 Commandments frontward and backwards. They're like the ABCs. We know it. He knows it, right? But what's interesting is that Jesus starts the 10 Commandments by skipping the first 4 that deal with our relationship with God. Like, have no other gods before me, and you should not have any idols. And he starts with the 6th commandment. Check it out. Look at how Jesus does this. He says in verse 19, you know the commandments. Yeah, of course I do. You shall not murder, check. No problem there. You shall not commit adultery, check. You shall not steal, check. You shall not give false testimony, check. You shall not defraud, check. You shall honor your father and mother, check. Got it. Now what's interesting is what Jesus left off. Jesus didn't give the 10th commandment. You know what the 10th commandment is? It's about coveting. It's about wanting more stuff. Jesus doesn't give that 10th commandment because that's this guy's idol. And so what does the guy do? He ought to know, wow, what Jesus left off, he's trying to tell me something here. But he doesn't. How does he respond? Check it out. Verse 20. He goes, teacher, he declared, all these I have kept since I was a boy. He's a good church kid. Awesome. But now Jesus is going to expose his idol. Verse 21, look what it says. Jesus looked at him and loved him. Now, I love that verse. Do you know why? Because Jesus is about to say something really hard to him. But Jesus is not saying this hard thing to be harsh or mean or cruel. And it's the same way with you. There will be those times in your life where Jesus Christ will probe and point something very hard in your life. And it'll be hard to hear and hard for you to handle, but he says those things to you, not to be mean to you, but so that he loves you, you can get rid of that idol. And so what is the idol? Well, he then tells you, verse 21, look at what it says. One thing you lack. Go, sell everything you have, give to the poor, and you'll have treasure in heaven. Then come follow me. Now, some people have read that verse and they've interpreted it this way. Well, I guess Jesus wants us all to take a vow of poverty and sell all our stuff and we're not to have any possessions. Well, that's not what Jesus is saying here. I mean, because the fact is this is the only person in all the scriptures that Jesus gave that commandment to. You know, Jesus met a lot of other rich people. Never asked them to do this. I mean, he met Nicodemus and he met Joseph of Arimathea, very rich people. He didn't tell them to sell everything. Why? Because idolatry of materialism was not their issue. They had other issues. You see, the issue is not that God doesn't want you to have nice things and that, you know, have a job or other things like that. That's not what God's saying here. But God is saying this: I'll have no rivals. That if stuff is your God, I will ask you to set it aside from me. That's what's happening here. And so here's this guy who basically had all this wealth, and just freeze frame that moment for a second. He's got to make a choice. I want life. Jesus said for me to do it, I've got to choose Jesus or money. My stuff or Jesus. Jesus or my money. And he makes a fateful decision. He chooses his money. And he shuffles away back to his God, his idols, his stuff, away from Jesus. Check it out. Look what it says, verse 22. At this, the man's face fell. He went back away sad because he had great wealth. He started with such joyful enthusiasm, right? Hopeful. And then suddenly he's leaving sad. Why? Because he made a choice. I'm going to choose my stuff above Jesus. That's his choice. Now, what I find interesting about this passage is that Jesus doesn't chase him down. Jesus doesn't say, hey, just kidding. Or, hey, you know what? 50%. Just give away 50%. He doesn't. Why? Because Jesus ain't going to compromise this. Because the first of the 10 commandments is still the first commandment, which is what? Look at it. Exodus chapter 20 verse 3 says, you shall have no other gods before me. Jesus is not going to have any rivals. And so let me ask you a very simple question. Is money and materialism and things and possessions your idol? Is it? Well, in the center of your outline there, I have a little box there. Materialism may be an idol if. And I've got two probing statements there that I want you to evaluate your own life. The first is this: materialism may be an idol if, one, you never have enough money. If you never have enough money. If you're like, golly, I wish I just had more. If I had just a little bit more, then I'd be happy. Or golly, you know what, my salary is never enough. They need to give me raises more often. I just never seem to have enough. Now you go, how do you know that that's a cause of idolatry? Because that's what the Bible says. Look at how Solomon puts it in Ecclesiastes 5:10. Whoever loves money never has enough. Whoever loves wealth, you're talking about that's what you worship, that's what you love, is never satisfied with their income. In your outline circle, never has enough. And see, what happens is that we go, okay, if my stack was just a little bit taller, then I'd be happy. Then I'd be secure. Then I'd be satisfied. And you ask those individuals, well, how much more do you need? Just a little bit more. Well, hasn't that always been the case? I mean, think about it. For some of you, you can go back 10 years, 15 years ago, and you know what? You're making a whole lot more money today than you did back then, and you didn't have enough then, and you don't have enough now. I think you've just discovered your problem. You're not content with what God has given you. That's the issue. You got an idol called materialism. Or basically, we go, okay, but you know, if I just had a little bit more, it ain't that. More ain't gonna satisfy. Now, some of you are like, well, Pastor Tony, I don't serve money. Well, let me put it in these terms. Have you ever bought something you didn't need with money that you really didn't have? If you have, you have just bowed down to the illusion of materialism. Got to get my little toy to make me happy. That's materialism. That's what it is. Or how about this? Have you ever compromised your ethics before? Maybe lied on an expense report? Or maybe downloaded some music you didn't pay for, or a movie you didn't pay for. Who in the world would compromise their ethics for a movie? People that want more, that aren't satisfied with what they got. That's who. Have you ever gone to Disney World and you know what? You tell your 12-year-old, hey, tell them you're 9. We get discount tickets if you're 9. Oh yeah, he's big for 9. Yeah, I know that. Who would do that? Who would compromise their ethics? People that think they've got to have a little bit more. That's who. It's a sign of idolatry. And so if you don't have enough, that's a sign that maybe materialism is your idol. There's a second sign, and it's this. Jot this down. Materialism may be your idol if you find it difficult to give big. You find it difficult to give big. That's really the story here of the rich young ruler. Jesus is asking this guy to give big. And he's like, I've worked hard for this. I can't live without this. I'm not giving big. The fact is that some of you, and I believe probably most of you here, would love to give big. You'd love to be more generous. I really believe that. You're like, you know what? I would love to be this generous person and give more, but I just can't afford it. I can't. My stack's not tall enough. Or, you know, I would love to, you know, give more to the church and the ministries of the kingdom of God and love to tithe like the Bible says and give that 10%. I'd love to worship God that way, but I just can't afford it. I don't have enough to do that. Oh, sure, I'd love to give that big tip to that waitress, and I'd love to help out the guy at work, and I know that guy's struggling with his rent. I'd love to help him out. I'd love to be this generous person to give money away, but my stack's not tall enough. I can't afford to give any of it away. That's what the rich young ruler said. We're just acting like the rich young ruler. That's all we're acting like. Check it out. Look at it, verse 22. At this, the man's face fell. He went away sad because he had great wealth. Jesus was asking him to give big, and he wasn't willing to do it. In your outline, circle, because he had great wealth. Now, statistically, in the United States of America, did you know that the more money that we have is the less percentage-wise that we give away? Statistically, there's always exceptions, but statistically in America, if you want to see people that give the least, those are typically the people that are the richest. Do you know that in the United States of America, do you know who gives the highest percentage of their money away? People that make $12,000 and less. Now again, there's always exceptions, but as a general rule, the more money you make, the less percentage-wise you give it away. Why? Because we have in our culture the god of idolatry, and when that's your god, you have a difficult time giving this stuff away. You do. And so here is the rich young ruler. He's just been told the truth, and he didn't want to hear the truth. Which then leads to the third principle about money, and it's this. Money is a spiritual disadvantage. Money is actually a spiritual disadvantage. Again, remember the story. Rich guy comes to Jesus. I want to find life. Jesus said, you want life? It's real simple. Give all your stuff away. Come follow me. He then leaves Jesus completely sad. And then what does Jesus do? Jesus gives a commentary of what just happened. Check it out. Look at it in verse 23. Jesus looked around and said to his disciples, how hard it is for the rich to enter the kingdom of God. In your outline, circle that. Hard it is for the rich. That's an interesting phrase. Hard it is for the rich. Basically, Jesus is saying, you know what? The rich have it hard. You go, what? Yeah, that's what Jesus in essence is saying. Now, today what I want to do is I want to share some good news and bad news with you. Ready? Here's the good news. Most of you here are rich. Bad news, most of you here are rich. Now you may go, wait a minute, I think I disagree with both of those statements. Well, the first statement, I believe most of you here are rich. You go, how do you know that? Because based on worldwealthcalculator.org, If you take the average income of Chattanoogan's in Tennessee, the average family makes $33,500. And if you make that much as a household, $33,500, you are in the top 5 percentile of all the wealth earners of this world. That means you make more money than 7 billion people on this planet. You are rich, whether you realize it or not. You are rich. And if you make more than that, let's just say that you make $80,000 as a family, you are in the top 0.5 percentile. You are mega rich. You are blessed beyond measure. Good news, bad news. Good news, you're rich. Bad news, you're rich. Why? Because it's a spiritual disadvantage to be rich. You go, in what way? 2 disadvantages for being rich. Here they are. Number 1 is this. It makes it harder to depend on God. When you got money, it makes it harder to depend on God. All you have to do is statistically look at the cities in the United States of America. You look at those cities that are the wealthiest people and incomes, those are also statistically the cities that have the fewest Christians. Why? Because who needs God when you got money? The money has become their God. You don't need to be dependent on God. And yet you come with me on a mission trip to a third world country, a developing nation, where you're hanging around with Christians that have virtually nothing, that sleep on dirt floors, and yet they have faith in Jesus Christ, and they have joy and abundance and love, and they're giving their life away, and they're so dependent on Jesus that you become envious of their faith. What's happened? I'll tell you what's happened. We have so much, it's hard to depend on God every day. I mean, Jesus tells us to pray, give us this day our daily bread. And yet few of us have ever had to pray a prayer like that. Why? Because our pantry is full, our cabinet's full. It's harder to depend on God when you got money. It is. And what Jesus does is he illustrates that. He tells them a story. Check it out, next verse, verse 24. The disciples were amazed at his words. Why? Because they thought, okay, if you're rich, that's a sign of God's blessings. Jesus is saying, listen, don't believe the health and wealth junk you see on television, those television preachers. That's not from me. Disciples were amazed at his words, but Jesus said again, children, how hard it is to enter the kingdom of God. It's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for someone who is rich to enter the kingdom of God. In your outline, circle that. Circle eye of the needle. Now, what's Jesus doing there? Jesus is contrasting. He's taken the biggest animal in Israel, which is a camel, and he's pointing to the smallest hole that you can think of. And he says, you fit this biggest animal through that smallest hole. That's how hard it is for the rich to enter into the kingdom of heaven. You go, well, that's impossible. Boop, that's it. Good news, though, it's impossible, but nothing's impossible with God, right? And so a lot of us, though, through the centuries, this whole parable of Jesus has been watered down. Have you heard this before? Well, actually what Jesus is talking about there is that there was this gate in the Jerusalem walls called the Eye of the Needle. And it was a real small gate. And basically, if the camel got down on his knees and scrunched in, he could get through the wall that way. Anybody hear that before? You know what that is? That's a bunch of bunk. It's not real. It's not true. I mean, the fact is, how do you know that? Well, one, because the word needle here in the Greek is talking about a sewing needle. And two, archaeologically, that little gate called the Eye of the Needle has never been discovered because it never existed. It is believed that it was dreamed up by a 19th century minister who wanted to comfort his rich congregation and lessen what Jesus was saying here. The fact is whether you're a billionaire like Bill Gates or you're homeless and just walked off the streets, the truth is we all come to Jesus the same way. We got to become desperately dependent on him and say, Jesus, I surrender all. You are Lord. You are what I need. I'm all in. That is how the rich are saved. That's how the poor are saved. With man, it's impossible to do that. With God, all things are possible. That's how we're saved. And Jesus is saying it's hard for rich people to be that desperately dependent on God. So the first disadvantage is it's hard to depend on God. There's a second disadvantage for being rich, and it's this. Jot this down. It distracts you from your true priorities. Money has this tendency to distract us from the things that really should be most important to us. You go, what do you mean? We see most of you here, you got rich people problems. You don't have real problems, you got rich people problems. You go, what does that mean? I couldn't get that hair appointment that I wanted. That's a rich person problem. Can you believe I told them to leave the pickles off my hamburger and they put the pickles on? That's a rich person problem. Look, we can't get Wi-Fi in the bathroom, so I can't check my Facebook when I'm doing my business. That's a rich person problem, right? That's a rich person problem. And rich person problems then lead to rich person distractions. When's the last time that you and your family, you sat down for a meal and had a long conversation around a mealtime? I hope it's once or twice a day. If it's not, you got a rich person problem that's led to a rich person distraction. Well, we can't really do that. We're busy. We got to have all these activities. No, you have just taken what God has given you, a blessed family, and you have distorted it with your busyness of rich person problems and distractions. That's what you've done. And you justify it. Or let's just talk about church. I mean, you're a follower of Jesus. I mean, you know God wants you to be with the people of God worshiping Him every week, right? He knows, you know that He wants you to be in Bible study and studying the Word of God together, right? You know that, and yet we got rich person distractions. Well, I can't really make that kind of commitment, and I'll come when I can, because you know what? We got the season tickets, and we got the house on the lake, and we've got this social event, and the kids are always busy, and they got that activity, and so, yeah, it's really hard. Oh, sure, I know that we ought to bring our kids on Wednesday night for Awana, and I know my teenager really needs to be worshiping with other teenagers at the Vibe on Wednesday nights, but golly, we're just so busy and we got all these distractions, and you know what? That's why the next generation's going to hell. Because we are so busy with our distractions, our rich people distractions, and we no longer have the priorities that Christ calls us to. Why? Because it's hard when you're serving an idol called materialism to keep your priorities right. Now, Peter gets what Jesus is asking for. And so this is what he says. Check it out. Mark chapter 10, verse 28. Then Peter spoke up. We've left everything to follow you. In your outline, circle the word everything. That's the key. It's everything, folks. Now again, we know that Peter left a fishing business to follow Jesus. And as we've said, Jesus is not asking you to leave your business or not have nice things. He's not saying that necessarily. But Jesus is not going to let you have any rivals. He must be your one true God. Don't have anything that crowds him out. And so I want us to end today with an amazing passage found by the Apostle Paul in 1 Timothy chapter 6. In 1 Timothy chapter 6, the Apostle Paul basically tells us, rich followers of Jesus Christ in the church, how we can be passionate followers of Jesus Christ and still have wealth. How do you balance those two together? Well, Paul tells us how in 1 Timothy chapter 6. Look at what Paul writes. He says this, command those who are rich in this present world, and that's almost everybody in this room, not to be arrogant, nor to put their hope in wealth, which is so uncertain, but to put their hope in God. What does that look like? Verse 18, command them to do good, to be rich in good deeds, and to be generous and willing to share. What's the result? Verse 19, so that they may, look at it, take hold of the life that is truly life. I love that phrase. Circle that. Circle life that is truly life. Think about that. A lot of us, what we do? We pursue life that really isn't life. It's just a cheap toy, right? He says, no, you need to pursue and take hold of the life that gives you real life. Why? Because it's money. It can buy you a bed, but it doesn't give you sleep. It can buy you a house, but it doesn't make a home. It can buy a book, but it won't give you wisdom. This money, you can buy medicine, but it won't give you health. This money, it will buy you entertainment, but it will not give you lasting joy. And if you go through this life always thinking, if I just had a little bit more, if my stack could just get a little bit higher, if I just had a little bit more, can I tell you something? More of this is not gonna keep your kids off of drugs. More of this is not gonna make your marriage more intimate. More of this is not gonna give you more purpose in life. But you know what will? Turning away from this and turning to Jesus Christ. We don't need more of that, we need more of Jesus. More of Jesus. Some of you give sort of a golf clap. Oh, that's sort of true. No, it's true. It is true. We need more of Jesus. That's what we need. We pursue Christ, and every time Satan puts a lie in our mind, you know what you really need? You need more of this. You need to say, no, get behind me, Satan. It's a lie. I don't need more of this. I need more of Jesus. I need more of his presence. I need more of his word. I need more of his worship. I need more of Jesus. That's what's going to change me. That's going to give me intimacy. That's going to give me life that I'm looking for. That's better. So the choice is yours. You got the same option that the rich young ruler had. My idol of stuff or Jesus? Money or Jesus, money or Jesus, money or Jesus? What are you going to choose? I'm telling you, if you choose materialism of this life, it's cheap tickets that'll never really satisfy. Or you can turn to the real thing, Jesus Christ, and say, Christ, I'm giving you everything. And when you do, that's when you experience Zoe, the life you're looking for.